Like if God invented a perfect place to store all of your life savings, they would she would invent Bitcoin. So it's perfect. So why wouldn't I do it? You know, when you're buying a stock, you're betting on the performance of this company over time. And you got a CEO, you've got the next product release, you've got competitors, you've got what are the regulators going to do? You know, how are they going to tax it? There's a lot of uncertainty and risk. And so what's a better idea? A better idea would be, what if I could just buy digital gold in cyberspace where no one can make any more of the gold? I got 21 million virtual gold coins in cyberspace. They're on a global network. Nobody can make any more. And there's no CEO, no company, and no country to screw it up. And nobody can take this away from me. I can take personal custody of my digital gold. And that's what we call Bitcoin. Why wouldn't I want that? Well, it's perfectly engineered. Like if God invented a perfect place to store all of your life savings, she would invent Bitcoin. So it's perfect. So why wouldn't I do it? Well, maybe it'll be hacked. We wait 12 years. It hasn't been hacked ever. Maybe it'll be banned. Well, actually, it's property by the IRS and the SEC in the United States. It's not banned. And when all these institutions buy it, you know, it's not banned, it's property, it'll be here for the long term. Well, maybe it'll be copied. Well, it's been copied 10,000 times. Nobody was successful, right? Bitcoin is 100 times bigger than Bitcoin Cash, 200 times bigger than Bitcoin SV. And so the dominant digital network with $1 trillion of money in it, that's probably the bank in cyberspace that we're all going to use. And I can, you know, 120 million other people made the same decision. So I have a problem, which is, where am I going to store my life savings? I have at this point only two choices. I can either put it in the stock market and buy a high tech company that's going to grow fast. By the way, why do you want to grow big? Why do you buy a high growing tech company? Because you have to grow faster than the rate at which the currency is weakening. If the currency is expanding at 15% a year, you have to grow at faster than 15% a year, your cash flows. So there's a rational reason to buy big tech or to buy the high flyers, because if they're not going to grow 25% a year, if I keep expanding the money supply by 20% a year, you just do discounted cash flow analysis. You have to discount the cash flows by the rate of money supply expansion. And so common sense is, if I'm growing 0% a year and the money's getting weaker 20% a year, the cash flows aren't worth nothing in 7 years. Okay, so ultimately what's going on here is, you either have to put your money in the stock market and guess on high tech, high growth, and that's a challenge, but you can do it. That's the popular solution. Or the other solution is, I put my money at a bank in cyberspace, the bank of Bitcoin. It's run by incorruptible software, and it offers me a global, affordable, safe, secure savings account for a person that neither has the means or the inclination to run their own hedge fund. And that, in essence, is what Bitcoin is. That's why people are stampeding into Bitcoin at the rate of millions a month. Well, 10 years ago, you didn't have Bitcoin, and the best idea you had was gold. And so if you look at the Weimar Republic, when you have absolute power and they just print the currency and it collapses, the entire regime collapses. And everybody's best idea is, I hoard gold. If you look at Zimbabwe, eventually the economy collapses. If you look at Venezuela, the economy collapses. When you don't have an option, you know, the currency collapses and people are left destitute, and sometimes there's revolution, and yeah, I could make a list of all the bad things that happened in history because the money got debased and the economy collapsed, but I won't. What I'll say is, I will offer an optimistic future. There are two things we have today we didn't have then. One, we have 6 to 7 billion people on the planet with mobile phones. And a mobile phone is a mobile computer in your pocket, and you have them in Africa, and you have them in South America, and you have them in Asia, and you have them in the US and Europe. And the second is, we now have $1 trillion digital monetary network called Bitcoin. Anybody in the world with a mobile phone can download an application and they can start to take custody of their own money, and they can hold it either on their mobile phone, or they eventually they can carry it on a hardware wallet, or if you can't get a hardware wallet, you can put it in your head with the seed phrase. But the most practical use application is, I simply instead of buying gold, like Jake, it's not very practical for you to buy $347 worth of gold. The markup is extreme. It's going to take a long time. And eventually, if somebody knew you had it, right, it gets shipped to your house, or you buy it, they put a gun to your head, they take your gold. And how are you going to pay for anything with a block of gold? So it's not really a practical it's not a practical way to store money. It was the best way we had for 5,000 years, but it's not a practical way. Digital gold is a different thing, though. We're moving toward a world where 1 billion people, in the next 5 years, 1 billion people will have Bitcoin. I think by the end of this year, 200 million people will have Bitcoin. We're adding them at 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 million a month. Right? That's how fast it's going. And so we're going to get to a world where billions and billions of people have a wallet, and they have money in it backed by Bitcoin. And it doesn't matter whether the Lebanese currency collapses, or the Turkish currency collapses, or the Venezuelan currency. And it doesn't matter whether the euro weakens by 15% or the dollar weakens by 50%, because as people put their savings account into the bank of Bitcoin, into that bank in cyberspace, they protect themselves from the currency weakening and the currency collapse. And they have sovereignty. It gives you economic sovereignty. It's a way for you to store your own monetary energy, your life force. And you can store it for a decade, for 100 years, for 1,000 years. You can pass it to your kids and your kids' kids. First time in human history. So what's really exciting is individuals have a way to shield themselves. And so I don't think we have to go the way of a Zimbabwe or a Venezuela or a Weimar Republic. I think that, the Bitcoiners say Bitcoin fixes this. The solution is everybody uses Bitcoin as their savings account. And as capital flows out of those fiat derivative instruments that are losing monetary energy every year, and it flows into Bitcoin, it's like you've got Kevlar armor, against the incoming cold. Now, what happens next? Well, if a government knows that you have the option to do that, then their technique doesn't work so well. It works less well. And then eventually there's a check and a balance. And if I can pretty much print money with impunity, and I can force you, down deeper and deeper into your hole, I have infinite power, absolute power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? As Lord Acton said. When I don't have that power, if I know that my citizens can actually just stop using the currency, and this is happening in like Nigeria, for example. If the citizens can just opt out of the system, then I actually have to sit down and say to myself, maybe I need to here's what's going to happen in Nigeria. They're going to say, we either need to fix the currency and stop printing infinite amount, and we have to uncorrupt ourselves. We can't just give away all the money to our cronies, and we can't spend money that we don't have, A. Or B, we have to adopt a different currency, maybe the dollar, a stable coin dollar, because no one believes our currency, and we have to defer to some other country's currency. Or C, people are just going to move and they're going to opt for a commodity currency like Bitcoin, and they're going to use that instead. And that puts every country to the question. And you can try to ban it. You can say, well, we don't want our citizens to have it. But how are you going to take away a product which I can hold on a mobile phone and I can access via VPN? I mean, look at VPN. People in theory can't access Google and Facebook and Twitter in China, but they access them. You can't really take away something which is encrypted, which moves at the speed of light over the airwaves. Just really hard. So Bitcoin ultimately is it's a stabilizing force for good. And it's not going to immediately solve the problem, but it's an antidote. Or it's an antibiotic. You're taking an antibody against this. The currency the currency, if it's losing 20% of its economic energy a year, it becomes toxic. It's like having toxic blood running through your body. Or another way, Jake, to say it is, I'm sucking 20% of the oxygen out of your bloodstream every year, and eventually going to suffocate you unless you have an oxygen bottle. And Bitcoin is like oxygen. It's an antidote to a toxic currency